Hey, welcome to Film versus Movie, the podcast where we debate the cinema you hate. I'm your co-host, Belton DeLaine-Facey.
And my name's Chris Shurr.
And on this podcast, we watch the films that have been slandered, desecrated, shoved to streaming, rebooted, and canceled by public opinion. And one of us tells you why it's actually pretty good.
And the other one tells you why it's a steaming pile of shit.
And today, for Women's History Month, we are discussing a film made by a female director and writer, and that movie is Wonder Woman 1984.
I feel bad that we're like, oh yeah, we're celebrating Women's History Month, and we're like, let's just grab the worst one we can find.
Yeah. Well, as previously stated on this podcast, we believe everyone should get the same opportunities to make bad movies as white men. Yeah, so Wonder Woman 1984, it's the sequel to the Wonder Woman movie that came out in 2017 with Gal Gadot, which was part of the DC expanded universe, which included films like Batman vs. Superman, Suicide Squad, and Man of Steel.
Yeah, I actually never saw any of those movies. I was always a Marvel bitch. Like I would like little like funny quips and I don't know. I don't need the broodiness of the DC universe.
I mean, I never understood why people felt the need to like pit them against each other. It's just like, do you just like comic books? You can enjoy both.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I actually did see one. I saw, what's the one about the kid who becomes an adult?
Oh, Shazam?
Yeah, the first Shazam rocked. I saw that in theaters on my like superhero kick.
Yeah, the first Shazam is a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, I just like it was another one of those movies where they can't figure out what bullies in high school do. Where instead of just like insulting them and maybe like beating them up a little bit, in the beginning of that movie, a couple bullies just run over a disabled kid in their car, and then they just get out of the car while it's parked on the lawn and they go like, "Nerd," and then they walk off. And everyone's like, classic bullies.
All right. Well, Wonder Woman 1984. Let's get into the plot. The movie opens on a flashback of Diana, Wonder Woman, as a young girl in Themyscira, where she's going through a game that just feels like Themyscira Ninja Warrior.
Yeah, it's not very clear what they're doing. It just kind of starts off where they're like rope swinging and pole vaulting and just doing various activities, and it kind of coalesces into a race.
Yeah, like that's the main thing I got. It was an obstacle race, and you know, Diane as a child, she takes a shortcut and gets reprimanded for it, told like, "Oh, there's no easy ways.
It's not the truth."
Yeah. And now flash forward to 1984 for another fight scene at a mall where she stops some robbers, and then we learn Diane's working at the Smithsonian, and we're introduced to her new coworker Barbara, who just comes in like stumbling, dropping papers, wearing glasses, the whole shebang.
Yeah. I really thought it was going to be like a lesbian story. I thought that would have been kind of nice. Like, it had the imagery. In turn, like she goes from like meek and then she becomes a cheetah. Like, I don't know. They could have made it not like a lesbian romance story, but just kind of like pining.
Yeah, and then they made Diane just not able to get over a man she met 70 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
So like while at the museum, they get a crystal we'll come to know as the Dreamstone to identify. They know like, oh, it's supposed to grant wishes, but neither of them takes it seriously. But they become friends. They have a nice lunch, and later that day, Diana saves Barbara from an attacker, and Barbara wishes to be cool like Diana, unaware the Dreamstone would make it come true, and Diana wishes for Steve Trevor back, her love interest from the first film, and so he comes back in another man's body.
Yeah, they really don't like make up for the fact that they did that.
Yeah, because that's the thing. They easily could just have him suddenly reappear. Like, this is a magic stone. Anything could happen. Why they just destroy that guy's life.
I love that they were like, oh, every wish has a price, but then the price was Diana losing her powers instead of like that dude being dead.
Like he's just a bystander in this. It's like your price is that guy's livelihood. Like
they're like they stole that dude's body, and they're like, oh, but she doesn't punch as hard as she did, and that was the price that they paid.
Yeah. All right. We're getting ourselves a bit. So then we're introduced to Maxwell, who wants the stone to save his oil company from bankruptcy. He seduces Barbara to get to the stone, and then he wishes to become the stone so that he can grant wishes and just take whatever he wants in return.
He took the dream of getting a genie and wishing for more wishes and just made it a reality.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought of that. That's a genius level kind of crazy person move to make.
Yeah, it's almost like one of those things, like you know how sometimes in movies when it's like they find like this magical item that'll make them super rich, like in Back to the Future 2 when Biff finds the almanac, it's like they have to keep it a secret so that no one else has access to it because it could ruin everything. He's just like, oh, I can't let anyone find the stone, so I need to become the stone.
And then he's like, he takes action by getting other people to wish while touching him.
Yeah,
which is like, it's a crazy condition to being evil.
Yeah, it's also funny because he uses it for so many mundane things. Like later on in the movie, he gets into a car. He just tells the driver, "Like, don't you wish there were no driver?" And the driver's like, "Yeah, that would be great." And wish granted.
And it's like there's a wording issue too, where they're like, "Yeah, I'd want that." He'd be like, "No, but do you wish it?" And not once was like, "Man, you're getting real weird about that."
Yeah. Also, because it feels weird that they specifically have to use that language, considering like it seems like the Dreamstone works across different languages. Also, I'm pretty sure Diana doesn't use the exact words "I wish for Steve Trevor." She just wants him that bad.
She's like, "It'd be nice."
So then Diana and Steve have fun. They have their little like we're back together montage, but then she realizes what the stone is and that Maxwell has it, and so they pursue him, and that's how they find out that the stone grant wishes but also takes something away. So Maxwell visits the president to help his company, and the president wishes for more nukes against the Soviets. And then the Soviets in turn detect they have more nukes, and they see it as an act of war. Which is like, I feel like if you ask someone like who barely knew anything about the Cold War, like what America wanted, they would say like, "Oh yeah, more nukes against the Soviets specifically."
I love he could have wished like, I wish the Soviets didn't have any weapons at all. Yeah. But he's just like, yeah, I need more nukes. Like, I guess they really got the like cocaine 80s vibe going for this movie.
Yeah, and it's like everyone's so magically specific with their wishes. Like, I feel like the president easily could have said, "I wish we didn't have to worry about the Soviets." And then like, what would happen? Would the Soviets lose all their weapons, or would they just get rid of every person in the Soviet Union?
And also, you're not telling me there's just like one boy who gets a wish and he's like, "I want to be a girl." And then like, he's like, "What's the downside?" And they're like, "Oh, well, your family doesn't love you anymore." And he's like, "I thought that was just like a regular thing about being trans. I didn't know that was a wish stone."
I'm not touching that one. All right. So after seeing the president, Maxwell goes to a new satellite system so that he could just broadcast the world to grant everyone's wishes. Diana confronts him, but Barbara sides with Maxwell, and they fight because when Barbara asked to be like Diana, she didn't realize Diana is Wonder Woman, so she also got her strength and everything. And so in the fight, Maxwell gets away. Once he reaches this broadcasting in the center and everyone's wishes are being granted, the world descends into chaos. And so seeing that Diana renounces her wish, meaning Steve Trevor is going away and she has to let go of him. And then she just dons new armor, fights Barbara outside the satellite headquarters, defeats Barbara, and Barbara is now a Cheetah, which Cheetah is a classic Wonder Woman villain, but Barbara becomes basically a Cheetah humanoid because at some point she's just like, I wish to be an apex predator, which again is also kind of vague. Like she easily could have been a crocodile or a shark, in which case Diana could just walk in. Maxwell would be like, didn't you have to fight Barbara? She's like, no, I just didn't go in the water.
All right. Yeah. Also, that armor didn't do much.
Yeah.
Like, it looked sick as hell, but like it didn't really help her.
Yeah.
In the
Like
fight.
it gave her wings. She like gave 2 smacks with the wings and then was like, I don't need the wings.
Yeah.
And so when she breaks in, she uses the lasso truth on Maxwell to persuade everyone in the world to renounce their wish. She also shows Max visions of his son among the chaos, wondering where his dad is. And so Max renounces his wish, which renounces everyone's wish in return. And then happy ending.
That kid, like, he was at the corporate office for Max's company. And then, like, I guess people are angry at Max. And so he just like leaves and walks along he gets like 20 miles away from the building he was by the end of the film. And he's just hiding in the woods. He's a smart kid. Like, I don't know. I'm just like, a little bit of respect.
Yeah. All right. So as mentioned before, this was part of the DC extended universe. The only 2 films in the universe that came out before the original Wonder Woman were Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Wonder Woman came out June 2017, became a massive hit, the best critical reception of any DCEU film up to that point. And so a sequel was announced a month later, and Patty Jenkins, who directed the first Wonder Woman movie, so her pay for the first movie was $1 million, which is proportional for the budget of that film. The thing is, when she signed on, they only signed her on to a 1-film deal. So she's renegotiating while Wonder Woman is being a massive hit, and she got paid $9 million for the sequel.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah. On this podcast, we love a bag chaser.
Yeah.
And so she co-wrote the script for 1984 along with Jeff Johns, who's the former chief creative officer at DC Entertainment. He wrote for a variety of DC Comics shows and movies. He worked on the Aquaman movie and some of the CW Arrowverse shows. And also a co-writer was Dave Callahan, who worked on a number of like big box office hits. He worked on Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, and The Expendables. Which The Expendables was an original script of his, so anytime a sequel comes out, he gets some money because they have to credit him for creating the characters. And just as a fun fact, Pedro Pascal, who played Maxwell in the film, he had a role in a canceled 2011 Wonder Woman pilot for TV.
Oh, damn. That would have been like very early Pascal, right?
Yeah, that would have been before like any of his big roles. I mean, I just remember when photos of the Wonder Woman pilot came out, people were just making fun of the outfit, and I think that solidified we can't move forward with this. I remember seeing posts that people were just comparing the outfit from that pilot to the Wonder Woman outfit in a porn parody and being like, the porn parody clears.
Wait, so is it just like bad construction, or was it like Or was it just super sexual?
I don't think it was super sexual. It just looked fake. Like it looked like you got it at Party City.
Oh, damn.
And so Wonder Woman 1984, it filmed from June to December 2018. They filmed in the Washington, D.C. area, as well as in various parts of England and Spain. And they built a lot of practical sets for this film. They built sets to replicate, the Smithsonian, the White House, and Maxwell's compound for the satellite at the end was all practically built.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, which is impressive. And now the release of this, it was originally supposed to come out December 2019, which I think we missed out on a lot of good memes of both Cheetah and Cats being in theaters at the same time. But the release was pushed to June 2020, which of course COVID happened and movie theaters were not open at all during that time. So they then pushed it to Christmas of 2020. And for whatever reason, Warner Bros. Really didn't want to push it even further. And so soon before the movie came out, Warner Bros. Announced all their 2021 releases would be in theaters and on HBO Max at the same time, which caused a huge stir in the film industry because like it messes with box office, and a lot of producers, directors, and stars have back end deals, so they get a bonus based on how well it does at the box office. Like I'm not sure if you heard, but Scarlett Johansson actually sued Disney because she had a deal like that for Black Widow, and they released it straight to Disney Plus.
I knew about the suing. Did she end up winning?
She got some settlement undisclosed, I believe. So Wonder Woman 1984 was actually the first film that got hit with this mandate. And I know they made some deal with Patty Jenkins, Gal Gadot, whoever had a back end deal, essentially, so they wouldn't sue Warner Brothers. And so the film had a $200 million budget. Worldwide, it made $169 million at the box office. But of course, with COVID, that's a giant asterisk. We don't know any of the streaming numbers.
Yeah.
And as of now, it has a 58% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 5.4 on IMDb.
I thought it'd be lower on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, because I just remember when it came out, like I did not hear a good thing about this movie. A lot of people just had a lot of complaints.
Well, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and so initially a Wonder Woman 3 was announced, but it was canceled when James Gunn took over DC Studios, and they announced they were just rebooting the entire thing.
I kind of wish they had had a Wonder Woman 3.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like the Wonder Woman movies could stand as their own film series separate from the DCEU.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know. It was an ambitious idea. We'll get into it.
That's all the production history. So now it's time for our opening arguments. Chris will be defending this, and I will be attacking.
You want me to start?
I can start.
Okay.
All right. Wonder Woman 1984 tries to be a fun popcorn flick, but forgets the things that made its predecessor a massive hit. It attempts to use the nostalgia of the 80s to mask its absurd plot, inferior action, and lack of strong convictions we've come to expect from its heroine. It's absolutely appalling that during the pandemic, DC gave us this plague of a movie.
Wonder Woman 1984 tries to break free from the prototypical superhero movie. It escapes the formula of big bad guy gains power and proceeds to destroy everything, and through the power of friendship and violence overcomes all odds to save the day. It looks to examine the fallacies of human weakness or strength and how greed and desire has the ability to corrupt us all. Its execution of that purpose isn't perfect, but it is a strong entry into the genre as a whole.
Okay. I just want to talk about like the way like the villain, and like I guess overall this nostalgia is because like Maxwell, he does feel like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. Like like hearing him talk kind of felt like on Phineas and Ferb how Dr. Doofenshmirtz would just be like, I'm evil, I do evil things, and they have some of that corniness. I just feel like they're not committed enough to just be being corny and playing on that nostalgia to really make it fun. Too much of it was just too serious.
I guess so. I don't know. I kind of look at it, him being an atypical superhero movie villain, in the sense that like he can't throw a punch. Like you get Thanos, even though Thanos is scheming in very large terms, at the end of the day, he can hold his own like in a fist fight against Iron Man. And here's just some guy who's like, he turns into a wishing object and then goes from there. He's not really fighting anybody. He's just like being insane. I don't know. I thought it was like a fun idea.
Yeah, I mean that's true, because like I guess his weapon was kind of just everyone around.
Yeah,
I think that that's a fun idea. I just feel like it was something where he's initially motivated by greed and just making money, and then I feel like at some point he just loses that. Like at some point he just gain excess, and you kind of have to ask like, what is he actually benefiting from?
Okay, look, this is set in the 1980s. This is the prototypical 1980s story of just a guy who wants to make it big. And then he gets some power, and then the good times roll, and it just keeps escalating. It's the story of cocaine, Belton. It is the story of a cocaine bender, but through villainous actions. Like it starts with money, and then it becomes about power, where he goes to, what is he? He's in like what, Egypt or?
Yeah, he goes to Egypt.
And then he takes that's like such a great scene where he's like, he goes to Egypt and he's trying to like recreate that magazine cover they had of the oil baron. And he walks in, he's like, yeah, I got all the oil now. And he's like, I'm also going to take your oil. And then you see the wish action happen for the first time. I don't know. Like it escalates real fucking quickly.
Yeah, but again, like I feel like it loses focus, and I think like the idea of like it playing on A's tropes, like I was actually hoping they would do more of that, because when they introduced Barbara, she is the typical just like bumbling nerd with glasses. Like literally during her first scene, only thing running through my head was Chris Evans from Not Another Teen Movie going like, oh come on guys, she dropped her books, she's wearing glasses, are you serious?
Are those paint on her overalls?
Yeah, it's like stuff like that, and it's like I was kind of hoping like they would go into just and do like more cheesy stuff like that and just go all out, but instead like it just becomes like part of the trope that like at some point she takes her glasses off and suddenly she's hot, which is also weird because they made fun of that trope in the first movie. Like this in the first movie, when they're picking out normal clothes for Diana to wear, and Steve Trevor is just like here, put on these glasses to look normal. His secretary goes, oh yeah, put on glasses and you're suddenly not the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Like they already made fun of that trope, so it's kind of weird like that. It's a pivotal character moment for Barbara.
I don't know. I liked all the Barbara slowly losing herself scenes where they just kept cutting to her and another ridiculous thing would be going on, where it's like, okay, and they'd be having a scene with Wonder Woman, then they'd cut back to her and it'd be a guy being like, oh, like, here's everything you need. And she's like, I don't need you. Like, she just kind of like escalates into this asshole of a character following all the 80s tropes of sort of like a nerdy woman losing herself as she becomes beautiful and loved.
I mean, the second part of that where it's like as she realizes she has like more physical power and feels more powerful, that makes sense to me. It's kind of the beginning part where she wishes like I wish I was cool like Diana. Then she like physically does stuff to like make herself feel better. Like she goes out and buys an expensive dress. She deliberately dresses in different ways, and she herself just actually talks to people. Because also the all of this stuff she assumes about Diana, she never actually sees. She just assumes Diana has like more respect. People like her, and she has like men falling at her feet. Their only scenes together are the first one where they meet and are given an assignment, and then they go out to lunch together. And then the scene where Diana like fights off an attacker. She doesn't actually have anything to base this idea that Diana's really popular off of.
Yeah, they did kind of write like a femcel character for her. Like she literally just sees a beautiful woman and just goes, "Oh, she has it all. Her life is perfect, and I can't." Like she doesn't make any decisions that would actually help her. She's just like, everybody else is the problem, and she gets the benefit of it. And if I just wish, I'll automatically become like a better person, and I'll get those benefits. But like I get what you're saying. Like there isn't a lot of like, it's not so much that the wish did a ton for her. It just made her feel a little bit better about herself. And then she went and bought new clothes.
Yeah.
And like did her hair different and had a bit better balance. Maybe got rid of her social anxiety.
Yeah. I mean, give her social anxiety. It was just also weird how like because in like the scene for the next day, it's like she slept in her office, so she's wearing the same clothes, but then she just like takes off the skirt that doesn't flatter her body at all, and she's walking around like, oh wow, why do people like suddenly find me attractive? It's like, why are we pretending Kristen Wiig is just ugly?
Okay, Pedro Pascal killed it in this movie. It might not have been like his best role ever. I think he did a good job playing the character. I think he's the only one who like through his acting made it like a more cohesive part of the story.
Yeah, I mean, like I made the comment about his character feeling like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. I do feel like that's the version he was pitched, because he kind of shows he could just act against everything, because like until the very end, it just feels like any scene with his son, like in the script, it just said something like insert kid here, like. Like you could tell me the kid was just CGI'd in later and he was talking to air, and I would totally believe you.
Yeah, he was acting his ass off. I think this movie would have been like a 10 on Rotten Tomatoes had anyone else been in that role.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that's the thing. His character was consistent, and they just. Did they ever specify like how he was deteriorating, or was he just going crazy?
Honestly, they never said that. He was just like, this wishing stuff is hard business. I've got a bloody nose now. And he's like, I better wish for more stuff. Classic cocaine behavior. He's just like bleeding from orifices. And he's like, you know what I need? More of the same stuff. I need to do more wishes. And now get rid of my bloody nose.
Yeah, and it's like again, like I feel like he would have been even better if you know we didn't like have to keep going back to like other parts of this story where trying to convince us like everything's depressing, or like part of it feels like a lack of sincerity for the rest of the story. Like like with Diana and Steve Trevor, it's like everything's just really really happy for them for just too long. Like they don't struggle with a lot until it becomes clear Diana's losing some of her powers, and that's what she's sacrificing for Steve. But it's like that doesn't affect their relationship at all. Like if it weren't for Maxwell trying to become an oil tycoon, Steve would stay in that dude's body forever.
Yeah, no, they really, as we said in the beginning, they just kind of glossed over the fact that they invaded someone else's body. They weren't even like, let's go find the wish stone again and wish for a different body. They're just like, yeah, fuck that guy. He's got a nice apartment. We could just live here if we wanted to.
Yeah, and one thing is like in the first movie, like a big thing that had to do with the theme was that you know Diana didn't understand the world of man, and Steve kind of somewhat guided her through all the complications of humanity. They kind of reverse roles where it's like, oh, now Steve just doesn't understand the 80s. So but it's like they don't give that same guidance role to Diane. Like she doesn't guide him through complications, because I do think there are times they could have had more conflict, especially between them, or even had external conflict that brought things out in their relationship they didn't think of, that they just don't use. Like when they had to steal a plane from the Smithsonian, and Steve just, even though the most recent plane he's flown was built in 1914, he can still fly it perfectly, and Diana just happens to know how to make things invisible now.
Look, honestly, the whole dynamic of Chris Pine coming into the future in the 80s was my second favorite part of the movie after Pedro Pascal. So like I get what you're saying. They threw no roadblocks in terms of like how him being in the future changes anything about his own behavior, other than he's like, wow, that's fucking sick. Like everything about the modern day is amazing. But I also liked it. I thought they did a good job with it. I don't think it really needed to be like the main conflict in the story. But it is weird that he was like, yeah, I know how to fly like a F4 Phantom.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is like the story. I feel like the story needs like some beating heart at the center of it, and it felt like it should have been Steve and Diana's relationship. Like it was something where it's like I feel like we need to see them like struggle to keep together at times and fight through it, because like it feels I think that's a big thing with this movie. Emotionally, what are you supposed to attach to?
Yeah, that's super fair. I mean, when we watched it together, we kind of hit like an hour 15 and we were like, what's the direction of this movie?
Yeah.
Because you hit an hour 15 and it's just like them vibing essentially and having a nice time in the future.
Yeah. And it's like also with the runs time, the first two scenes felt unnecessary, because the first one is the flashback to her as a kid on Themyscira, doing the whole obstacle course. It's like, what was the lesson there that was supposed to be relevant to the rest of the movie?
Truth. They did try to tie it back together at the end, where that's what the same speech that is that her mom?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, the same speech that her mom gave her after she cheated, she gives to Max. Now, maybe not like word for word, but the same gist of like, don't hold on to something that's not the truth. And that if you like, there's always a price to be paid when you're not living truthfully. It's a stretch. It's honestly a pretty big stretch.
Yeah, that feels like a really big stretch. I mean, but also like that scene took up 11 minutes, and it's like it felt like it had no impact. Then the next scene is when she's stopping that burglary at the mall. That also took up a huge amount of runtime, and it felt like that was just a show. It's like, oh yeah, Wonder Woman's fighting in the 80s now, and it's like, did we really need that long sequence for it?
Oh my, when they get out of the store. So like it's a couple robbers and they're breaking into a jewelry store, but not because they want the jewels in the store. They want the secret back room where there's a giant smuggling operation within a mall. Like the second floor of a mall is where the smuggling operation is. And so they like load a bunch of shit into suitcases and then they walk outside and there's like 2 people with suitcases and they just do this like really obvious swap where they like toss it really high into the air and they swap suitcases and like wander off in different directions. There's no like mystery about who has which suitcase. They're just like, oh, okay, I guess we're chasing that guy now instead. It's a very fair point. That scene, honestly, that whole scene seemed like not a problem for Wonder Woman.
Well, no, because she's Wonder Woman, and these are just like 4 guys.
Like, that seems like more Spider-Man territory. Is Wonder Woman like going after the same types of crimes that Spider-Man would?
No, in the first movie, she fought the literal god of war.
Yeah, so like, yeah, that's pretty. Plus, she's like, she keeps like shushing. She'll like save someone's life, and she's like, shh, like, I don't want people to know that Wonder Woman did this. Like, no one. I don't know. You're right. That scene is kind of a fucking mess.
Yeah, it's also with her secret identity. Like one thing about like you see in like every Superman portrayal, since he's known for this, is that when Superman goes from Superman to Clark Kent, his entire demeanor changes. Like the reason he gets away with it is because no one's gonna look at like the super nerdy guy you work with and be like, that's Superman, because that sounds insane. Diana feels like she has the same demeanor as Wonder Woman. Like she still walks around super confident and sure of herself, and she doesn't wear a mask. I don't understand how people don't see her as Wonder Woman.
Well, she did the like shh thing where she's like, yeah, I like broke a dude's neck with a single punch. And then she looks at an 8-year-old and she's like, shh.
All right. And I guess people didn't walk around with cameras in their pockets in the 80s.
They walked around with cameras. Like, yeah, I agree with you. They would have busted Wonder Woman's ass a long time ago.
I'm just imagining Wonder Woman getting busted because of a disposable camera. But yeah, I guess along with that, it's like I feel like they like stretch to try and find a theme with this movie, because I feel like they knew the theme couldn't just be like, be careful what you wish for, because first off, a lot of people didn't know they were making actual wishes. Like people didn't take it seriously. Like there was that one couple that was just in a massive fight while Max was on their TV, and guys just like, man, I wish you dropped dead just out of anger, and suddenly she drops dead. It's like I don't think he would actually kill her if.
Well, and then Gal Gadot's like, give up your wish, and he's just sitting there being like, should I do it? He's like, I don't see a lot of downside right now other than she's dead.
Well, because yeah, I mean, it's a matter of like, I feel like it's equivalent to like if Elon Musk got on TV and it was just like, everyone wish for what you want right now, everyone would be like, all right, that's Elon being Elon. And then suddenly some woman in cosplay goes on and it's just like, take back your wish. You'd be like, all right, he needs to sell Twitter again.
Also, they like really, I don't know. The downsides were always like hit or miss, where that one dude's like, man, I'd love to own a farm. And then he wished and he's like, well, not right here. That's not really like he could just move the cows somewhere else.
I mean, but it's like, how are you just gonna suddenly move cows? Like it's crazy how fast everything goes into descent. Like people made wishes for like a minute, and suddenly Washington D.C. is just on fire everywhere.
There's like preachers on the corners, like talking about the end of times.
It's almost like at the beginning of the pandemic when people were really obsessed with toilet paper for some reason. It's just like, all right, we need to break every storefront to get this toilet paper.
Like, what happens if someone they're like, I wish every single wish was permanent. No matter what Wonder Woman tries to do, I wish that this couldn't be changed back.
That's actually a really good question.
Well, like, that's the issue with the whole like wishing superpower. It is kind of dumb and nonsensical.
Yeah,
you can't take it too seriously. Sorry to interrupt you.
The thing is, I think like maybe if like the first movie wasn't so like genuinely sincere and like fully understand its themes and through line and like be an exploration of man through war, maybe this one they could just like completely dropped everything and just had fun. But this, like, you have to carry things over from the first film. There are audience expectations that that just collide with a lot of it, and it's like you can't necessarily just pull off that 80s cheesiness the way maybe they wanted.
That's fair. I can't comment on that because I've never seen the first one. I never saw the first Wonder Woman. So like going into this, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty fun. This Diana character seems like a real ball of energy.
I'm surprised because I remember when it was out, every woman was just like, oh yeah, now I get why guys are so hyped. I saw Wonder Woman and now I also want to punch a tank.
Yeah, when did that come out? Like
2017.
Yeah, I wasn't really watching superhero movies at that point. When did Infinity War come out? Was that like 2018?
Yeah, 2018.
Yeah, the first like I saw like the original Iron Man, but then after that I didn't watch any until like Infinity War. So I watch things all out of order, but yeah, I never saw the first Wonder Woman.
Wait, so you just walked into Infinity War? It's like, what's Spider-Man doing here?
A little bit. I was having one of those, like, I was having a bad day, and so this was in Denver, so I went to a dispensary, and in Colorado, the max you can sell an edible is 100 milligrams, but you can buy this stuff called edible hash. And you can buy 250 milligrams for $20, and it's like in a syringe. And so I just got like a cup of coffee and I just squirted like 3/4 of that bad boy right down my throat. And then I was like, I'm just going to go see Infinity War. And on the way there, it started kicking in. I was talking to my Uber driver and he's like, hey man, you want me to tell you what's going on in the MCU? Like, I don't want to spoil it for you. And I'm like, I have no clue what this is about.
Okay. Also, I have to say, my mom listens to this podcast, so I have no idea what any of those weed measurements mean. Last thing I have to say, that final fight scene between Diana and Cheetah, they clearly did not do a great job on Cheetah's VFX, and they made it too dark to cover that up.
Yeah,
because even in the moment where like she is staying on top of the building, and that's and it's completely framed as a shot of like unveiling the big bad for the finale, and you can barely see her.
Well, she's a predator. She's stealthy. That's like a design.
She was standing on a building. You could see her. You could see her shadow. I was expecting like a flash of lightning so you could see her in full, but it's just like, oh, we're just not gonna see. And they never give you like a real good close up look. It's just while they're fighting.
Yeah. Also, they never really like explain why Kristen Wiig so badly wants to fight Diane. They're just like, she's like, yeah, I want to be like you and I want power, but she also could have just taken that power and left.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a matter of she didn't want Diane to stop Maxwell because then she would have lost her being cool and all that.
Yeah, but she could have like cut a deal. You're like, yeah, roll back every wish, but the one that makes me likable.
No, the crazy thing if when Maxwell like at the end renounced his wish, the stone suddenly came back. She could have just taken the stone and made her wish again.
Well, did she die?
No.
Oh, okay. I know she got knocked into the water and she was unconscious. I don't know if she died or not.
Yeah, I feel like maybe in earlier drafts she died, but then they ran it with test audiences and they're like, no one likes Wonder Woman just killing this nerd.
All right, we want to get into 3 points.
All right, so now it's time for our concessions. This is where I give 3 things I liked about the movie, and Chris gives 3 things she didn't. First thing I liked, Chris Pine. I thought he did a great job in like this fish out of water role reversal. All the scenes where like Diana's like taking around the art museum and like doing outfit changes were really fun. Like especially at the art museum where he's just like, is this also art? And it's just a trash can. Like I feel like Chris Pine is one of those actors where he would be a great character actor if he was not stuck in a leading man's body.
Yep. Well, yeah. He's his best. I loved him in Dungeons and Dragons. That was Chris Pine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like he killed it in that role. But they could have made him not the main character and it still would have been a fun role.
Yeah. Yeah, he just knows how to have a lot of fun with stuff.
Yeah. The plot is bananas and they didn't execute it well. Like it's just a fucking wild plot where like you're bringing people you have a wish stone and you bring back a guy, your lost love, and he's body snatching people essentially. And then you have like the nerdy femcel who just wants to like be loved. And then you that's like how they set it up. And then you have the guy become the wish stone. And in order for him to move his plot forward, he needs to get other people to wish on him. And there's like very direct words they need to do. So like his whole method of action is he needs you to touch him and say like, I wish for something. And then he gets to be like, and also this. And then that's how he gets what he wants. And at the end, he gets a CIA level particle program that involves satellites to take over telecommunication network. Like it's fucking bananas. But it also takes an hour and a half to have any direction.
Yeah.
It's like, I love it. Like it's such a crazy choice. But there's also a reason most movies don't make bananas choices.
Yeah.
Like
and that was one thing. I feel like the movie didn't need 2 villains. Like it kind of felt like Pedro Pascal, he was the real villain. And then it's like they kind of threw in Cheetah because she's a classic Wonder Woman villain. The same way if you remember Spider-Man 3 from the Sam Raimi trilogy, it's like they had movies set, but then the studio was like, you gotta put in Venom because we're 3 movies in and they haven't seen Venom yet. And it's like nobody really wanted Venom, but he's there now.
Is Max Lord a typical Wonder Woman villain?
From what I read, he is a Wonder Woman villain, but not one of the big ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Also, like I believe reading Kristen Wiig was announced as part of the cast for Pedro Pascal, so it makes it feel like they wrote in Cheetah first, and then like just Maxwell later.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, my second concession. I like the 80s cheese. I like going for that nostalgia factor. Looking it up, like Patty Jenkins was in high school and middle school during the 80s, so it makes sense that this is nostalgia for her. And but it's like that. But it's like it was fun going through that. Like when that was the whole scene. I just wish they carried that all throughout the film.
Yeah, I get that. It seems like the writers kept wishing for things that could be in the movie and ultimately couldn't come up with a way to bring it all together. So they just threw the wishing concept together. Like, it seems kind of like they're just like, oh yeah, so like, what if it had Cheetah? And they're like, all right. And they're like, what if Chris Pine came back? And they're like, that'd be great. And then at the end, they're like, it's too much shit. And they're like, I don't know. What if we made it happen through wishes? And they're like, that's the plot. And so they came up with the whole Max Lord thing.
Yeah, I mean, part of me wants to think like it makes sense to have like the stone that grants some power. Part of me also thinks because Justice League had come out before this, and that was kind of the thing in that movie. They had like the mother boxes, and they were like, we gotta stop the villain from just gathering the mother boxes and using them for powerful evil. And so it's like, oh, you got if you're gonna have a stone, you gotta try to switch it up. And so like it definitely feels like it wasn't their first choice to do that.
No.
Yeah, and then the final concession, I have Pedro Pascal. Like he does do that role very well, and he knows how to have fun with it and can act against anything.
Yeah,
it reminds me, that Nick Cage movie where he plays himself like unbearable talent, and Pedro Pascal is like a really fun supporting character. That's what it kind of reminded me of, like the same energy.
Oh yeah. That's funny because my last one is the characters are all over the place and they're honestly like kind of washed out in their motivations and like actions, but Pedro Pascal manages to pull it all together. Like he took all of this weirdness in this movie and really carved out a great character.
Yeah.
And an excellent performance. All right, now we're to our closing statements.
Yeah, I guess just one thing I have to add. This is just something I found funny watching both the movies, due to the fact Gal Gadot just can't really do accents. She by default has the Themyscira accent, so so all the actresses playing an Amazonian just have to kind of do an impression of her to keep it consistent.
All right, do you want to?
All right. Yep. Now it's time for our closing arguments. So Wonder Woman 1984 has a number of fairly good ideas that suffocate each other. It had all the promise to continue the success of the first film, but lacked focus too much to find its footing. Instead of becoming another part of a great film series, it now marks the beginning of the end for a major cinematic franchise.
Adventurous ideas are often seen as terrible because they subvert our expectations. Wonder Woman 1984 is an ambitious project that, while falling flat at times, pulls itself together enough to be an interesting entry into the genre. It's not the best movie.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely worse.
Yeah. Like, they tried something new. They weren't... Like, I gotta respect it.
Yeah.
I'm also not gonna shit on a woman director during Women's History Month, unlike Belton.
Hey, Patty Jenkins got her bag. That's all that matters. All right. Well, this has been another episode of Film versus Movie. Thanks for listening in, and we'll see you next time.